of your desires for devotional service unto him is infallible. Any method other than devotional service is useless. That is my opinion. Purport by Srila Prabhupada. There are three kinds of men who are called akama, moksha kama, and sarva kama. One who tries to get liberation from this material world is called moksha kama. One who wants to enjoy this material world to its fullest extent is called sarva kama. And one who has fulfilled all desires and has no further material desires is called akama. A bhakta has no desire. Sarvapadhi vinirmuktam tat paratvena nirbalam. He is purified and free from material desires. The moksha kami wants to achieve liberation by merging into the existence of the Supreme Brahman. And because of this desire to merge into the existence of the Lord, he is not yet pure. And since those who want liberation, he is intelligent only if he worships Lord Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, by rendering transcendental loving service. Kashyapa Muni saw his wife Aditi had some material desires for the welfare of her sons, but still he advised her to render devotional service to the Supreme Personality of Godhead. In other words, everyone, regardless of whether he is a karmi, jnani, yogi or bhakta, should invariably take shelter of the lotus feet of Vasudev and render transcendental loving service unto him, so that all his desires will be duly fulfilled. Krishna is Dina Anukampana. He is very merciful to everyone. Therefore, if one wants to fulfill his material desires, Krishna helps him. Of course, sometimes if a devotee is very sincere, the Lord, as a special favor to him, refuses to fulfill his material desires and directly blesses him with pure, unalloyed devotional service. It is said in Sri Chaitanya Charitamrita, Madhya Leela 28, text 38 to 39, Krishna kahe, ama bhaje, mage vishaya sukha, amrita chadi visha mage, ei bada murkha. Ami vigna, ei murkha, vishaya kene diva, Swacharanamrita diya vishaya bhulaiba. Krishna says, if one engages in my transcendental loving service, but at the same time wants the opulence of material enjoyment, he is very, very foolish. Indeed, he is just like a person who gives up ambrosia to drink poison. Since I am very intelligent, why should I give this fool material prosperity? Instead, I shall induce him to take the nectar of the shelter of my lotus feet and make him forget illusory material enjoyment. If a devotee maintains some material desires and at the very same time very sincerely desires to engage at the lotus feet of Krishna, Krishna may directly give him unalloyed devotional service and take away all his material desires and possessions. This is the Lord's special favor to the devotees. Otherwise, if one takes to devotional service but still has material desires to fulfill, he may become free from material desires as Dhruva Maharaj did, but this may take some time. However, if a very sincere devotee wants only Krishna's lotus feet, Krishna directly gives him the position of Shuddha Bhakta, Bhakti, unalloyed devotional service. Shall we read the translation once more? Would you like to repeat? The Supreme Personality of Godhead, who is very merciful to the poor, will fulfill all of your desires, for devotional service unto him is infallible. Any method other than devotional service is useless. That is my opinion. I offer my respectful obeisances to all my spiritual masters who have introduced this wonderful world of Srimad Bhagavatam to me and who continue to guide me onwards in my journey. Hare Krishna. So in this chapter, we understand that Aditi, who is the mother of the demigods, is very morose. She's lamenting because her children are suffering. And who are her children? I just said, the demigods. So are they like ordinary people? Like, I have children too, and as a mother, I lament sometimes when they're suffering, and I look for a solution. But the demigods, like the highest possible class of human beings, and in many ways, we can say that they're doing designated service by the Lord. And Aditi is disturbed because the demigods are taken away from their kingdom. And this is just a quick context for those of us who may not be aware of why Aditi is sad and why the demigods have fled. As we know that Indra, who's the king of demigods, had offended Durvasa Muni when Durvasa Muni had offered him a Mahagarland, and Indra had given it to Gajendra, who was not Gajendra, Airavata, who's an elephant, and Airavata didn't obviously treat it as respectfully as it should have been treated. And Durvasa Muni got angry and he cursed Indra and all the demigods to lose their power, and they lost their power. So the lesson there was that we should be respectful of the devotees and not be taken away by the pride that our position of power causes. So when they were cursed, then they went to Lord Brahma, who took them to Lord Vishnu, and they were advised to churn the ocean of the milk ocean so that nectar will come and they will be granted their strength again and immortality, their strength again. After this happened, and there's a long description of the churning of the milk ocean, and I'm sure that you may have already covered that in the previous classes. The demigods were all fired up and they got too much power, so they started killing all the demons. They started, the word uses massacring all the demons, and Narad Muni had to intervene to ask them to, it's okay, we're done. Let's just, call it a day. Go do your business. Take care of the material affairs. And he encouraged the demons to approach their spiritual master Shukracharya, who then revived the demigods. The demons. And the demons, the king of demons, Bali Maharaj at that time was really enraged that, such a thing would happen. And after having been revived by their teacher, Shukracharya, his strength was invincible, he was invincible. And at that time, he attacked the demigods again. So imagine they did this whole exercise of churning the milk ocean. So many things came out and they did so much hard work, but then again, they lost their kingdom. So at that time, when the demigods approached Lord Vishnu, he asked them to just wait. Said, the time is not right yet. You must just hide and wait till the time is right. And that's when Aditi is obviously, as a mother, she's lamenting for the suffering of her children. They're homeless. They don't have their service or their possessions. And Kashyapa Muni enters into this scene after several months, and he finds his wife. She's lamenting and she's morose. And first he gives her some wisdom that, this is just a material desire. And really, the goal of the soul is much higher than that. And the reason why I want to highlight this material desire is sometimes we, as mortal beings, we have desires for concern for our family, for their well-being. But this is Aditi, who is, one of the finest human beings that exist. And it's the demigods who are also one of the finest human living beings that are there. But even concern for them is a material concern, according to Kashyapa Muni. And he's advising Aditi that, you should just sorrow and happiness and loss and gain is a part of the whole deal. So don't take it too seriously. But then he realized that it's not helping her. She's still not convinced. She's sad. The philosophy didn't help her. So then he told her, okay, you want to find a solution? Here, do this Payovrata worship of the Lord, and he will give us a solution for this misery that we're in. And the key point that Srila Prabhupada is reflecting again, or reiterating again and again in this verse, is the power of devotional service. That the verse that is quoted is Akama Sarva Kamova Moksha Kama Udaradi. So whatever desires you have, and I don't know about you, but I know for sure that I have desires. It can even just be about our material well-being, about getting settled materially, spiritually. Moksha is a desire that has been spoken of as well. It's a desire. Anything that's different from the service of Krishna is an independent desire that we have. But whatever desires you have, you just go to Krishna. That's the main lesson in this. And we see that Srimad Bhagavatam again and again and again highlights the same example. Srila Prabhupada gives the example of Dhruva Maharaj. So what desire did Dhruva Maharaj have? Who knows? Yes, Prabhu.
His father disrespected him, his stepmother disrespected him, so he wanted to have all those possessions and the love as well.
Yeah, he wanted to have a kingdom which was greater than his great-grandfather. Bigger than Brahmaji's kingdom. That's what Dhruva Maharaj wanted. He was a 5-year-old boy. He wanted that. He had that desire. And what did his stepmother say? Stepmother said, you have to go worship the Lord, take birth again, and come from my womb. and then you will get your desire fulfilled. So he went crying to his mother. The mother said, we're all suffering due to our past misdeeds, but the only way is you have to worship the Supreme Lord if you want this. So your stepmother is correct. You should go and worship the Supreme Lord. And Dhruva Maharaj went. He was on his way to the forest, and who did he meet? Narada Muni. He met Narada Muni, and Narada Muni tried to test him. Is the disciple really ready to take shelter, to give up? He tested him, said, you're a little boy, go home, play with your toys. But Dhruva Maharaj was clear, I want this is my goal. Will you help me? Will you tell me how to do it? And Narada Muni then guided him on how he should worship the Supreme Lord to fulfill his desires. He didn't say that, this is a separate desire, let's worship this channel. He just said that you should go and worship the Supreme Lord. Because ultimately, all our desires, everything that we desire, is fulfilled and sanctioned by the Supreme Lord. He may have different department heads that actually deliver that result to you, but he is the ultimate signing authority. So instead of trying to approach the different departmental heads, we shouldn't disrespect them. But if we just approach the ultimate sanctioning authority, then he will fulfill the desire. And what's very beautiful about his fulfilling the desire is that his desire fulfillment isn't like a tunnel vision. Sometimes when you, depending on the maturity level of a person, if you go to somebody to fulfill, let's say if you're sick, okay? I have a headache. I will, if I go to my husband, he'll say, okay, just take rest, something like that. Or, well, in his case, he'll give me a medicine. But, he will try to address the situation at his level from what he knows of the diagnosis. Then if I go to a doctor, my family doctor, after waiting for 3 hours, and I tell the doctor that, I have a headache, and they will test my blood pressure, and they'll say, your blood pressure went high. I'm just making this up, okay? This is not a real situation, but your blood pressure is too high, so they will give me something to reduce my blood pressure so that my headache reduces. Then I decide, this is not helping me. I should go to an Ayurvedic doctor who can diagnose my pulse and actually see what is the root cause of the blood pressure that's going high. And what is really something that will solve my problem in the long run. Not just that I take a Tylenol and after 6 hours I have the headache back again. So it's, depending on the maturity level of who you approach for the fulfillment of your desires, the desires are fulfilled accordingly. And the effect is according to the capacity of the person who fulfills your desire. So if I take a Tylenol, 6 hours. If they look further and say there's a blood pressure thing, maybe I have to be on the medication for that. And as long as the medication lasts, my blood pressure will be in control. But if I go to somebody who can help me address the root cause, then I may be disease-free for a longer time. So similarly, in the material world where we exist right now, we all have desires. Somebody wants a job, somebody wants to get married, somebody wants to have kids, somebody wants their kids to study well, somebody wants their kids to listen to them. I'm just inserting some things in here. And somebody wants a house, you want PR, citizenship, like there's so many, it's a whole supermarket of desires, right? And there's fine desires under that, interest rates for those of you who care about mortgages, salary hikes for those of you who work, or prashadam, proper enough prashadam that satisfies my senses. So there's as many desires as almost more than our breath that exist. And we can try to fulfill each desire independently, like, okay, I want this, so I can go to the bank because I want a better mortgage. But all those desires will get fulfilled in the short term, and you must go to the bank if you want a mortgage. It's not like you sit in the temple and just meditate and Krishna will give you the mortgage. We still have to act. But ultimately, if we realize that our desires are never ending, and the only solution really is to align our desires in the service of Krishna. Because we are constitutionally parts and parcels of Krishna. So our existence is that of a servant of Krishna, a part of Krishna, and a part has no value without the whole. If there is this mic stand, very nice mic stand, has a screw right here. That screw is valuable because it's connected to the mic, and that mic is amplifying the sound so that everybody can hear. But if the screw falls out and says, I no longer want to be a part of this mic stand. I want an identity of my own. I'm going to enjoy everything. I want the acclaim. I want people to pick me up from there and put me here so that the speaker speaks into me. That's foolishness, right? because the nail, the screw, will never be able to become the whole mic stand. So we're like that little screw, a part of the whole piece. And we have a job. We have something unique that only we can do, because that's how Krishna creates everybody. Krishna has made everybody with something unique that we can offer, that's just ours to do. But we have to align, like we have to be okay being that part of the whole, because we can never be the whole. We can compete, but we can't be the whole. And in our foolishness to compete, what happens? In a screw that rebels, you just throw it out and you get a new screw, right? The screw will never become the mic. So we have to, just going back to our desires, we may have a desire, and the Srimad Bhagavatam is full of such desires, devotees who've had desires, and whom Krishna and the spiritual master has always encouraged. Okay, whatever desire you have, approach Krishna, because he is the sanctioning authority. And the reason why I said that he doesn't have tunnel vision is that Krishna realizes that, I can give this devotee what they're asking for. But what if I give them something bigger, that this desire becomes trivial in front of it? Like another example in our material conception is when you're in high school, all you want is, if you're a good student, you just want to get good grades so that you can get a good admission. But once you got the admission, then it becomes immaterial. Like your desires of that good grade, how much you cried over it, how many temples you visited to get a good mark, doesn't matter, because you're already past that stage. And now there's a new desire. I want to do this course, or I want to get a job like that. So the desires keep changing. But instead, if somebody asks, if the desire is so big that it encompasses everything, it takes care of everything, isn't that more intelligent? To just ask for something that takes care of that big clause that takes care of every other clause in your life. Because ultimately, everybody wants to be happy. Why Dhruva Maharaj asked for that big kingdom is because he wanted to be happy. He thought that that big kingdom will make it happy. Why we ask for all the different things that we ask in our life is because we think that it's going to make us happy. But the nature of this world is that happiness is not a permanent thing. Happiness comes of its own accord, and distress will come of its own accord. We cannot change our karma. The karma bank balance allows us to get the happiness and the distress. We must work for the results. It's not that we don't work and we say everything's going to come on its own accord. We must work for the results, but the results that will come are already in your quota. So just like we don't ask for the winter and the summer, but they come of their own accord, similarly, happiness and distress are going to come of their own accord. But if we're intelligent, we try for this ultimate goal. The ultimate goal is this thing of always being happy, always being, really just always being happy. Anybody have any other goals here? Any other desires, rather, not even goals. Any other desires? Come on, please. Yes, Prabhuji.
Endless desires.
You have less desire? Endless desires. But ultimately, if you do a root cause analysis, as they do, the root cause for everything is that something gives you a perception that this will make you happy.
Even when you consider yourself a body, then everything, body is the root cause.
That's true. Yes.
I have a desire to graduate. Not because I want to be happy, but because I can't live without it.
Yeah. Well, let me tell you one thing. Even though I want you to graduate with flying colors, you will live without it. But it's our perception that, I can't live without it. That's how we seriously feel. Like, something happens to a loved one. Oh, I can't live without you. But it's how we're perceiving it. But at the same time, it's a very legitimate desire. You must graduate with flying colors. So I'm just trying to do a root cause analysis here. Any other desires, anybody?
Get a job.
Get a job because
to survive.
To survive, to be happy. Be happy. Yeah. Yes, Prashadam.
Pass Bhakti Shastri.
Pass Bhakti Shastri. Excellent desire. Quite transcendental. But tell me, why do you want to pass Bhakti Shastri?
Because everyone is studying so hard for it.
So you'll feel left out if you don't pass. Well, peer pressure so that I can be happy. Anything else? Well, we have a mix of all kinds of desires. The point here is that the root cause of everything is because it gives us a perception that we will be happy. And the way, yes?
And just to add, sometimes lack of suffering is also considered as happiness.
Yes.
You know, like a lack of like fear of failure or missing out, and that's also almost considered happiness.
Yes. Lack of suffering can be considered happiness, but lack of suffering isn't happiness.
Yes.
And an example that His Holiness Devamrita Swami often gives is that, when it's a very hot day, it seems like a luxury right now, given the weather outside, and you're doing Sankirtan, okay? Well, maybe not Sankirtan, because that's just transcendental and doesn't come in this realm, but you're outside on the street, and it's really, really hot. And you see a mall, the Eaton Center, and you enter into the hall, like the lobby of the mall. And all of a sudden, when you go there, you feel like this cool, refreshing air, and you're like, this is happiness. But it's not going to stay for much longer because there's nothing for you to do. So that absence of the suffering from the heat outside can seem like happiness, but it's really not happiness. Because for it to be happy, we need two things. According to Srila Prabhupada, we need someone to love and something to do. And actually, according to, sorry, excuse me.
Can you repeat it?
We need we need two things, someone to love and something to do. And this isn't just, of course, Srila Prabhupada is saying it, so it carries a lot of weight, but I also want to just complement it with material psychology studies, that human beings need a sense of belonging. And that sense of belonging is the core need for a human being. Without that sense of belonging, there is really no substance to our existence. And all of our behaviors are purposive, which means that they are derived because we want to have that sense of belonging. So everything we do is because we want to belong somewhere. And that's how we can be happy. But I'm sure from your experience, you've seen that not loving everybody can be a source of happiness, and not doing everything, not just doing anything can be a source of happiness. So here we have to study or analyze what is our nature, like who are we? And that's where Sri Antarikshma was saying, the body is the cause of suffering, but existentially, we are a spirit soul. We're not this body. The body's changing. 7 years ago, you were a different body. 7 years later, you're going to be a different body. In the next birth, you're going to be a different body. We change bodies like we change clothes. But we're a spirit soul, and the nature of the soul is to love and to serve. And to love means to serve, actually. So the nature of the soul is to serve. And not just serve anybody, but serve Krishna, because that's where we're really, really happy. We can find ways to serve other people or other things that are not related to Krishna, but that only leads to unhappiness. The dharma of the soul is to serve. And dharma means our intrinsic nature. And that dharma, when it's fulfilled, is what will make us happy, will make us satisfied. There may be struggle when you serve. There you will have to endeavor. It's not all rosy. But that struggle leads to satisfaction. And I'm sure you can all reflect in this room, because you're all, really strict, sincere practitioners of Krishna consciousness, that when you render devotional service, when you're following the guidelines of the authorities, there may be challenges. But at the end of the day, you feel satisfied that you did the right thing, that you're happy in the association, you're getting your needs met, and you're moving on in life, So it's not easy, but that's what leads to satisfaction and happiness. So again, going back to the main point here is that no matter what desires we have, we may not be at a stage, I'm not at a stage where my only desire is pure devotional service. I'm very honest and open about it, that we're not at that stage. Many of us may not be at that stage, but even if we are at that stage, when we're not at that stage, we should just really surrender to Krishna, try to render devotional service from our heart, and Krishna will just help us. He will fulfill our desires if they're good for us, and if we're really, really sincere, he will give us something even better. Like Dhruva Maharaj, he got his desires fulfilled, and you know what he said when his desires were sanctioned? He said, "I'm embarrassed that I asked for something, because after realizing that the goal of life is to serve Krishna, this feels like pieces of broken glass, what I asked for." But that doesn't mean that he was untrue to himself. We can only make progress in our spiritual journey if we're true to ourselves. We have to be honest. We have to admit where I'm at to be able to move anywhere. So I have a desire, go open up to your mentors, your spiritual master, say, I have this desire, I know it's not 100% pure. I know as a devotee, I shouldn't be desiring all this, but I have a desire. What should I do? And then the spiritual master or the mentors can guide you, okay? Do this, this, and this. And then when you follow that guidance, it strengthens you and you can move onwards in the journey. But the whole point is that we must serve Krishna and align with it. Whether you have any desires or no desires, serve Krishna. And the second one is don't do it whimsically. Because again, the Srimad Bhagavatam gives many references. Dhruva Maharaj, the demigods, whenever they wanted something, they just, okay, fine, I want this, I'm going to do this. That's a very material way of doing things. In spiritual life, our culture is of taking guidance. Krishna consciousness is a culture of taking guidance. It's a culture of being vulnerable. Don't be vulnerable recklessly, but open your heart to those you trust, and they will be able to guide you. Because the real cleaning is the cleaning that needs to happen inside. On the outside, we can follow the rules, we can do what's need to be done, but if we're not taking care of the inside, it doesn't stay for very long. So it's important that we expose ourselves to somebody we trust. I do it all the time, and I'm sure many of you do it all the time. I have this problem. I know I shouldn't be thinking like this because this is not a pure desire, but this is where I'm at. And I only know of one way forward is to open my heart to those who I trust, and then they can guide you. If everything else fails in Krishna consciousness, taking guidance will never fail. So we should have some of our non-negotiables. My non-negotiable is that there should be a few people who I will turn to, even if things are just like dark and gloomy and I don't know why I'm doing these things. There will be somebody who I will open my heart to and take guidance, because it's not an independent thing. There are people who are burnt by interaction with other people, by authorities, and many times we see that those people take to impersonalism because they just don't want to deal with, I'm so hurt by everybody, I don't want to deal with people. I just want to be me and Krishna or whoever, the supreme, they usually don't really relate with Krishna as the supreme, but me and God, that's it. I don't want anybody in between, but it doesn't work like that. There is no exclusive rights here. And in our working with everybody else together is where our purification takes place. And that's also another lesson in the Srimad Bhagavatam. We hear, I think it's the Prachetas, when the Lord is pleased when they work together. So it's Krishna consciousness isn't an individual thing, because it takes a village to raise a child. And we have to create that village for ourselves, because really in the long run of spiritual life, we're all just little children, and we need our system of support and shelter. So I'm going to wrap up my points here and then just open up for discussions. In conclusion, in this story from this snippet from the section of interaction of the demigods and demons, we notice that Aditi, she's lamenting because her children are suffering. And at first, Kashyapa Muni, who's her husband, and the Prajapati, he's telling her, all this is just material, you don't have to worry about it. In the ultimate scheme of things, it's irrelevant. But she wasn't satisfied. So then he recommended that you conduct the Payovrata worship so that we satisfy the Lord. And then we know that Vamanadev appeared, as you will read on from here. Srila Prabhupada highlights these few points in the purport, that no matter what desires you have, you must approach Krishna, because he is the ultimate sanctioning authority. And it's only intelligent to approach somebody who has the full view of what we need, not just now, but in the future. And the root cause of our suffering is that we have desires that are separate from our desire to serve Krishna, like the screw that wants to be the mic, but it can't be the mic. So the best thing is for the screw to be happily situated in the mic, and maybe we can take a picture of the screw also, just to make the screw feel better. But being a part of the whole gives us happiness. We need someone to love and something to do. That's the core need of a human being. And in serving Krishna, all those desires are fulfilled. And towards the end of this purport, Srila Prabhupada is saying that Krishna, as quoting from Chaitanya Charitamrita, that, this person is asking me for material desire. He's so foolish, but I'm not foolish. I'm going to give him attachment to my lotus feet. And that's what we know from the example of Dhruva Maharaj as well. He fulfilled the desire, but he gave him the higher taste. So if we're doing this worship, that we're worshiping, rendering devotional service to Krishna, we leave that window open. Like Krishna, I have this desire, I really want to get it fulfilled, but just purify me along the way, so that ultimately with every desire that's being fulfilled, we're getting closer and closer to Krishna. So we have to keep the main goal in mind. And the last point that I wanted to insert, which I did, is that we must do all of this under guidance, because it's very easy to get lost. We can take philosophy and suit our needs. And it says in the Srimad Bhagavatam, or even misquoting Srila Prabhupada's words, that this is what Srila Prabhupada said, but taking it completely out of context, why he said it, to who he said it, and just because it suits me. So it's very, very important to create a network of care for your own self, guidance, shelter, and being vulnerable with those who you trust. Okay, thank you. Any questions, comments, things that we can discuss? Yes. Okay, how do you normally decide? Okay. Yes, Prabhu.
Let's say I have a duty to fulfill, and that duty will take me away from the intensity of spiritual activities that I'm doing. So in that case, what should I do? Like in here, Krishna says that I take all the desire and possessions from my devotees.
Yeah.
So how should we view this situation?
Ideally, in Srimad Bhagavatam classes, like group gatherings, it's very hard to give specific suggestions because your situation may be very specific. So I encourage you to speak to somebody who knows your situation and they can give you specific guidance. I can speak as a general principle. Krishna, in the purport, Krishna says that he takes away the desires. But Srila Prabhupada also says for those devotees who are really unalloyed. So it depends on where we gauge ourselves. But at the same time, we have to think of spiritual life as a marathon. It's not a sprint. Sometimes we may need to reduce the intensity of our service externally because we need to, get better equipped, or we need to settle some material responsibilities so that we can return with more intensity and more potential. So it really depends on the situation. And as much as our devotional service is an external manifestation, but a lot of it is an internal manifestation. His Grace Vaisheshika Prabhu often gives an example of his friend, Satyadev Prabhu, who's also one of the spiritual masters in our movement, and he used to work as a paramedic, and he had a very, very intense schedule. And Vaisheshika Prabhu says that he used to use every single moment that he would get a window to enhance his devotional service by focusing on hearing and chanting. And now, after all these years of whenever his situation in life changed, he's rendering all the external devotional service in the sense, he's accessible to devotees. So you can see the devotional service that he's doing. But intensity of devotional service, there's the externals and there's the internal. And in the internal, there's the time and there's the intensity with which you do things. How intensely are you hearing the Maha Mantra when you're chanting, or how intensely are you reading? That's something that nobody else can gauge. So in a nutshell, I think that it depends on the situation. Sometimes, and many people need to do this, especially when you change ashrams, people need to take, a step back from the external intensity. But they're I like to call them as seasons of your life. But seasons change. So as long as our orientation is right, season change will not matter. Again, get guidance for your specific situation and stay connected. We may have less intensity, but we're connected. Then things will be on the right track. Okay? Thank you. And just one more point. Sincerity of purpose is a very important thing, because only you know what your purpose is and how sincere, you are about it. Externals can help or people can judge, but if you're sincere, time's going to tell. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mataji, for this amazing class. My question is based on desire. So, how do we recognize if our desire is material or spiritual? Because sometimes we say that our desire is spiritual, but then we guard those material desires inside the spiritual desire. So, how do we recognize that?
Completely relatable and it's very true. And that's why we need a living guidance. That's why we need that. Because And not just our spiritual master, because we may not have access to our spiritual master for every single desire that pops up, but somebody who you can take guidance from, like a mentor, maybe mentors. Just, I have this desire, and be honest. I know, like, I understand that being honest is hard, being vulnerable is hard because you're really opening up. But that pain that you feel when you're opening up, the sweeter the result is. But we have to go through that pain. It's like Krishna is, when we're chanting, we're asking Krishna to we're cleaning our heart, and we want Krishna to come reside. So he sometimes takes the steel wool and he scrubs your heart. Anybody clean pots in the kitchen? And the tough stains come out with steel wool, right? They don't just come out with a soft sponge. So all that will happen. So it's painful to be vulnerable, but if you do that, it's going to be very sweet. And you will get to see. And sometimes, in my experience, I realize that this is a material desire cropping up in my service. What should I do? And I'm honest about it. In the pure devotional service, it shouldn't matter, somebody's behaving like this with me in my service, because I'm doing it for Krishna. So why does it matter to me? But it matters to me. So I tell my mentors that, this is happening. This is what's bothering me. I know I shouldn't be bothered, but I'm bothered. So can you please tell me what to do? And then, they guide you onwards. It's real. It's very tangible. So my request or my suggestion is that. Thank you. Yes.
Mother, here, after drinking the nectar, the first question is, the Daityas and demigods, they were all Kashyapa's son. So it doesn't matter that who is your father, just like mother's consciousness was all.
I know.
It's such a great
there is the Srimad Bhagavatam describes it in detail, how Diti approached Kashyapa Muni for having children, and then the consciousness, and how Kashyapa Muni tried to deter her. Now is not a good time, but she was insisting. And ultimately, we know that it's also a plan of the Lord. Ultimately, it's the plan of the Lord. That how such a progeny had to be there, because what's the fun in the whole thing if there's no demons? So yes, it does matter. Of course it matters. And in his defense, Kashyapa Muni tried to deter Diti. In the Srimad Bhagavatam, it's described in detail. So, yeah.
If there were no desires, there would have been no fun in our life.
Well, there were no desires. I don't think anywhere it's possible to not have any desires. I think pure devotees have only desires for Krishna. Like whatever Krishna wants, they want to do. So I think desires are always there. Desire is a part of our existence, but pure devotees, Shuddha Bhakta, have only desire is to serve Krishna. So whatever Krishna wants, they will do.
And after drinking the nectar, Rahu becomes immortal and demigods get defeated.
Momentarily. Demigods. So that's, thank you for bringing that up. That was another thing I wanted to say, that sometimes what happens to us in life, we need to see the full picture of what's happening. Because momentarily we may feel like we're defeated, but there's a bigger picture. And it's never easy. If you're up for a big goal, it's never going to be easy. And you can see this in, the material class of entrepreneurs. Steve Jobs said, right? Like you can connect the dots looking back. So it's never, you can't just take a snapshot. Okay, so much effort you did. Now Rahu becomes immortal and you become defeated. What's the point? No, there is a point, because the story continues. It's never finished. So, the demigods regained their power, and even though Rahu became immortal, he's still not viewed by everybody else as a favorable personality. So it depends on how you look at success and where you look at success. So it's never over till it's over. Ishan, please.
Thank you for your class, Mother. I just wanted to mention about the example you gave about Mike in school. So it's very interesting. So of course the school cannot become the Mike, but a lot of the persons they may argue that the Mike cannot work without the school. And coming in say that Krishna or God cannot exist without the followers or the people who are there. So how do you argue back in that? Or how do you explain to a person that that is not true?
Thank you. Arguing with impersonalists isn't my forte, I'll be very honest, but I'll try my best. I think in this example of the mic and the screw, the mic cannot function without the screw, but the screw can be replaced. We are not irreplaceable. And obviously, it's a mundane example because the mic is so finite and the screw, Krishna isn't. Krishna, I wouldn't say Krishna doesn't exist without the followers or the devotees, but Krishna relishes the service of the devotees. And that's why this whole creation takes place. And the jiva exists because the only reason why jiva exists is to serve Krishna, because that gives pleasure to Krishna. So Krishna enjoys that interaction, and we see that Srimad Bhagavatam is full of examples where Krishna is called Bhakta Vatsala, he's called Dinanukampana. He is known by his devotees, Nanda Nandana, Yashoda Nandana. So Krishna takes pleasure in being called the son of Nanda Maharaj. It gives him pleasure, but pleasure is not restricting him. It's not like he's dependent on that pleasure. And true pleasure is something that we're not dependent on. It's not out of compulsion. So the living entities are created because Krishna likes to enjoy that exchange. And living entities exist eternally, but we exist for the purpose of pleasing Krishna. Sorry, did you have something more to say?
No, it's
Okay, thank you. Prabhu.
When you were answering one question by Amuli Prabhu, you said that it is good to take guidance from mentors. So then a question arises that when we talk about mentors, sometimes I refrain to ask one question to two mentors.
Yes.
If they give two answers, then I will have doubt.
Yeah, no. Sorry. Thank you for that. I didn't mean that you asked the same question to two mentors, but I feel like it's important to have a network of mentors because life is like that you may not always have access to, for example, in my case, if one of my mentors is busy, but they're all aligned, in that sense, like when I requested for taking shiksha from a senior devotee, I did check with my initiating spiritual master that I'm going to ask them for taking guidance because I wasn't able to, not for every single thing, I wasn't able to go to my initiating spiritual master. So it's like they have to be aligned. And you can have, not like you're shopping around. Sometimes, thank you, that's a thing where, again, that, the material desire, spiritual desire. Sometimes we ask 10 people and we settle with somebody whose advice is just what we want to hear. So, and it's a relationship that you build over time, that you trust a little, you share a little, then their guidance resonates with you, then you explore it further, like that. But yes, no, I'm not saying that you should ask the same question to two people and then, land in a bigger soup.
But I think generally it doesn't happen. They have similar answers. I think that's the beauty of parampara.
Yes.
They have somewhat similar answers. So,
They have, yes, because the spiritual master or the mentors should not be, they should be in sync, Guru, Sadhu, and Shastra. But what I'm trying to say is that sometimes in your specific situation, there may be different, depending on the mood of the mentor, there may be a different answer for the specific situation. For example, the question that Prabhuji asked, my intensity of devotion service may reduce for some time. Depending on the mood of the person, there may be a different answer for that question. It may be all aligned scripturally, but it depends on the mood. So that's what I was referring to. Yeah?
I also have one reflection.
Please.
This class was one of those classes when you see the time and you get anxiety like class is getting over.
Sorry to give you more anxiety.
It means class was really
Thank you. I really appreciate your feedback. Thank you. But material world is an anxious place and I don't want to add to it. Anything else? Yes, Prabhuji.
Mother, yesterday I got confused with Shukracharya's character. When we were reading about Prahlad Maharaj, he was a full material teacher.